Welcome, dear students. Today we are going to discuss debates on secularism in India. The main objective of this lecture is to understand what secularism is, what is Indian version of secularism, and how it is different from Western model, and how Indian secularism has been interpreted differently by different scholars. To begin with, defining secularism is a tough task, as there is no fixed definition of the term. Broadly, secularism has been defined as a system of belief that advocates separation of religion from politics. This interpretation holds that 1. State shall not concern itself with religious beliefs, practices and institutions. 2. State shall not be associated with a particular religion. 3. State shall permit freedom of conscience, belief and religion for all its citizens. And number 4, state shall not discriminate between citizens on the basis of their religious beliefs. This understanding of secularism has come to us from West, and this type of secularism, which stresses on erecting a wall of separation between state and religion, is called Western or mainstream model of secularism. However, in Indian context, secularism is understood differently. Indian version of secularism is grounded in the principle of equality of all religions and not in the separation of state and religion. As stated by Thomas Pantham, secularism in West is actually taken to be emphasizing on the separation of the state and religion, whereas Indian secularism stresses the equal tolerance of all religions, even though it also upholds a certain differentiation and relative separation of the political and religious spheres. Keeping in view the fact that religion constitutes an important part of people's lives in India, some scholars agree that it is difficult to separate religion from politics in India. As Jacobson has rightly said that, whereas in the United States, it is at least possible to envision a clear separation of church and state, in which religion and politics are maintained as distinct areas of human striving, and where the neutrality of equal treatment is broadened to require a hands-off policy for governing the relations between secular and religious institutions. Such an arrangement is inconceivable in India, where religious and secular life are so pervasively entangled that a posture of official indifference cannot be justified either politically or constitutionally. There is a broad consensus among the scholars that Indian version of secularism focuses on equality of all religions, but as rightly pointed out by Neera Chandok, this notion raises some complex questions. What does it mean to treat religious groups equally? Does it mean that the state will stay away from religious beliefs and practices equally, or will it intervene in the internal affairs of religious groups for whatever reason equally? Does equality, in other words, imply that special protection should be granted to the minority groups to protect them against any sort of assimilation. This notion of secularism is neither supported by the constitution itself nor the political practices, because the government intervention in religious matters of different religious groups has been selective. Immediately after independence, the government set out to reform the personal laws of Hindu community through a series of legislations known collectively as the Hindu Code Bill. Through the constitution and a series of parallel legislations, the government set out in a determined fashion to reform the Hindu caste system. But minority religious groups were not touched. So, the government intervention in the affairs of religious groups has been selective. The Hindu community was socially reformed through legislative intervention, but the personal laws of the minorities were left alone. It is because of this selectiveness Hindu right has called Indian secularism as pseudo-secularism. So, what actually Indian secularism stands for remains a debatable subject even after 70 years of independence. One of the important reasons for this controversy is also the approach followed by the framers of the constitution on this issue. On the issue of secularism, the members of Constituent Assembly adopted the strategy of ambiguity. The debates in the Constituent Assembly between 1946 and 1949 revealed that there were real differences among the members on the direction that Indian secularism should take. There were attempts to insert the term secular state in the draft constitution on the one hand, and to begin the preamble by invoking God on the other. Both did not succeed. Members such as H.V. Kamath, Govind Malviya and S.L. Saxena wanted to begin the preamble to the Indian Constitution with the phrase "in the name of God." But after a heated discussion, this amendment was put to vote and was defeated. At the other end of the spectrum, Brajeshwar Prasad wanted to begin the preamble with the words, "We the people of India, having resolved to constitute India into a secular cooperative commonwealth to establish socialist order." He said that this word secular was dear to India's national leaders, and its inclusion in the preamble would tone up the morale of the minorities as well as prevent disorderly activities. But this proposal was also rejected. The Constituent Assembly debates reveal that on the issue of secularism, members adopted different positions. Shefali Jha has divided these positions into three types. The first position, called as the no concern theory of secularism, saw a definite line of separation between religion and the state. An individual should be left free to decide whether to be a believer or not, or to adhere to this religion or that. Therefore, it was advocated that the preamble could not contain any reference to God, and neither should the constitution establish links between the state and any religion, and religion should be relegated to the private sphere. members declared that the need of the hour was to strengthen the identity of Indians as citizens of the Indian state, as opposed to being members of some community or religious group. While speaking on the objective resolution on 13th of December 1946, Radhakrishnan asserted that nationalism, not religion, is the basis of modern life. The days of religious states are over. Similar thoughts were expressed, though in an exaggerated fashion, by Gupta Nath Singh. He said that the state is above all gods, it is the god of gods. I would say that a state, being the representative of the people, is God himself. These positions logically led to a conception of a secular state as one that stays away from religion. Members advocating this kind of secularism included K.T. Shah, who demanded the insertion of an article in the Constitution erecting a wall of separation between state and religion, and Tajamul Hussain not only wanted to define the right to religion as a right to practice religion privately, but also insisted that religious instruction was to be given only at home by one's parents and not in any educational institution. He also wanted to include a clause in the Constitution stating that no person shall have any visible sign, mark or name, and no person shall wear any dress whereby his religion may be recognized. This implied an understanding of secularism in which religion is a private affair between man and his God. It has no concern with anyone else in the world. The second position on the secularism, exactly opposite to the first, held that no links between the state and religion should be permitted, not because this would weaken the state, but because it would demean religion. Religion is a system of absolute truth, and it could not be made subject to the whims of changing majorities by allowing the democratic state to have a say in religious affairs. The third position, called as equal respect theory of secularism, held that in a society like India, where religion is an important part of people's lives, state distancing itself from religion is not warranted. Rather, it should respect and treat all religions equally. One of the main proponents of this view was K. Munshi, who said that the non-establishment clause of the US Constitution was inappropriate to Indian conditions, and we have to evolve an Indian model of secularism. He further said, we are a people with deeply religious moorings. At the same time, we have a living tradition of religious tolerance. In view of this situation, where state could not possibly have a state religion, nor could a rigid line be drawn between the state and the church as in the US. Lakshmikant Mitra and H.V. Kamath claimed that the Indian state should not disclaim India's lofty religions and spiritual concepts and ideals. The Indian state should not encourage sectarianism, but at the same time it should actively impart spiritual training or instruction to its citizens by giving some kind of spiritual education to them. The first and third positions, that is, the no concern and equal respect positions on secularism, clashed constantly during the debates in the Constituent Assembly, as the question of secularism cropped up in discussions on number of occasions. It came up even when parliamentary procedure and the linguistic reorganization of states were being discussed. When the articles of the Constitution on religion were discussed in the Constituent Assembly in December 1948, K.T. Shah again raised the demand that an article be included in the Constitution separating state from religion. Such an article would begin as, "The state in India, being secular, shall have no concern with any religion, creed or faith." Tajamul Hussain wanted to replace the terms practice and propagate religion with practice religion privately. Though there was a broad consensus among the members that India shall be a secular state, but what version of secularism the state shall adopt remained a contentious issue in the Constituent Assembly till the very last. The ambiguity surrounding Indian secularism has resulted in a nuanced debate and differing interpretations of Indian secularism. As early as in 1960s, D. E. Smith, based on his theory of secularism, which carries three important features: A. Liberty and freedom of religion; B. Citizenship and the right to equality, non-discrimination and neutrality; and C. The separation of state and religion, argued that in India the first two principles have been incorporated into the Indian Constitution both as the basis for secularism and as important constitutional values in their own right. However, the right of the state to intervene in the affairs of religion have deeply compromised these two principles. Smith argued that the core problem of Indian secularism lies in the non-separation of state and religion. Therefore, he concluded that India has some, but not all, the features of a secular state. On the other hand, V.P. Luthra argued that since the wall of separation between religion and the state does not exist in India, so the country is not and cannot be secular. Writing against the background of the demolition of the Babri Mosque and the subsequent communal riots in 1994, Partha Chatterjee also raised some crucial questions troubling defenders of secularism. He said that if we accept that secularism means a strict separation of religion and politics, this particular meaning can prove fairly compatible with the persecution and discrimination against minorities. But if secularism means equidistance from all religious groups, then the political biography of the Indian state violates the norm. The state has, after all, intervened selectively in religious matters of different communities. The dilemma, according to Chatterjee, is that if the state adopts secularism as separation, then minorities cannot be protected. However, if it interprets secularism as equidistance, then its own practices violate the norm. He suggested that the better way to protect the rights of minorities is to follow the norm of toleration. Ashish Nande, who calls himself an anti-secularist, argues that ideology and politics of secularism has exhausted its possibilities in India. He locates the cause of religious violence in secularism and modernity. Secularism is a product of Western science and rationality and functions as the ideology of modern state, which according to Nande is a source of most contemporary problems. According to Nande, Indian secular state has much to learn about morality from Hinduism, Islam and Sikhism, while Hinduism, Islam and Sikhism have nothing to learn from the secular state in this respect. As an alternative to secularism, he pleads for the recovery of India's traditional religious tolerance. Nande also discusses two different meanings of the word secularism in modern India. The first meaning of secularism demarcates two distinct spheres: public life and private life, and one's religion is not admitted in public life. One can be a good Hindu or a good Muslim within one's home or at one's place of worship, but when one enters public life, one is expected to leave one's faith behind. Against this is the non-Western meaning of secularism that believes in the principle of equal respect to all religions, which carries the idea that public sphere must have a space for continuous dialogue among different religions, because each includes within it an in-house version of other faith, both as an internal criticism and as a reminder of the diversity of the theories of transcendence. This version of secularism is compatible with Indian understanding of secularism, but India's westernized intellectuals have opted for abolition of religion from the public sphere as per Nande. Taking a note of increasing violence in modern India, Nande claims that secularism has failed to promote religious tolerance as well as eliminating religion from politics. The reason being, people in India are not ready to separate religion from public sphere. Nande presents non-modern, pre-secular conception of religion as accommodative, tolerant faith as an alternative to the modern Western secularism. This version of secularism derives religious tolerance from Buddhism, Islam and Hinduism respectively. This was practiced by Ashoka, Akbar and Gandhi as well. For Gandhi, religious tolerance was not only tolerance of religions, but as a tolerance that is religious, the roots of which were in traditional Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma. Nande's anti-modern version of secularism proposes space for continuous dialogue between religious traditions and between religion and secular. According to Nande, traditional societies have developed internal principles of tolerance that helps them to live together. Thus, interreligious rights were rare in them. T. N. Madan also criticizes the idea of secularism, but he does not dismiss it absolutely. Keeping in mind the South Asian realities, he cautions against imposing secularism on people as separation of state and religion. South Asia is a multi-religious society, and the majority of people living in this region are active adherents of some religious faiths, and in some states, religion has been officially recognized. For instance, Buddhism and Islam have been declared as state religions. The policy of equidistance is also difficult to maintain because religious minorities do not share the majority's view of what this means for the state. In a region where religion covers all aspects of life, it is impossible to restrict it to private domain. Religion is the most important factor of the life of the people of India and South Asia. Religion gives meaning to life of most of the people and also determines their place in society. Thus, to impose secularism on believers is wrong, in the words of Madan. It constitutes an act of moral arrogance and political folly as per Madan. Religion and belief of people must be taken seriously and should be given its place in society, because denial of legitimacy to religion in society of believers provokes fundamentalism on the part of believers. Through religious pluralism, interreligious harmony could be established. An alternative conception in Madan's view is Gandhiism, because it has the possibilities of interreligious understanding. While defending the Indian model of secularism, Rajiv Bhargava terms Indian secularism as contextual secularism. Indian Constitution presents this vision of contextual secularism, which excludes religion for some purposes, like for separate religious electorate, and includes it for other. For example, personal laws of religious communities. This type of secularism is guided by the principle of principled distance. The policy of principled distance entails a flexible approach on the question of inclusion or exclusion of religion and the engagement or disengagement of the state, depending on the context, nature or current state of relevant religions. This means that religion may intervene in the affairs of the state if such intervention promotes freedom, equality or any other value integral to secularism. For example, citizens may support a coercive law of state grounded purely in a religious rationale if this law is compatible with freedom or equality. Equally, the state may engage with religion or disengage from it, depending entirely on whether or not these values are promoted or undermined. A state that intervenes or refrains from interference on this basis keeps a principled distance from all religions according to Bhargava. This is an integral idea of principled distance. The principled distance also allows for differential treatment, which may even require state intervention in some religions more than in others, depending upon the historical and social condition of all relevant religions. For the promotion of a particular value of secularism, some religions relative to other religions may require more interference from the state. For example, suppose that the value to be advanced is social equality. This requires undermining of caste hierarchies. If this is the aim of the state, then state has to interfere in caste-ridden Hinduism much more than other religions, for example, Islam or Christianity. To conclude, it can be said that the Indian version of secularism is different from mainstream version of secularism. It has not created a wall of separation between state and religion, but it has its own distinctive features and is close to the practices of democracy and core political values of equality, freedom and rights. Dear students, with this we are signing off our today's lecture. Hope you have enjoyed it. Thanks for watching it.